So the purpose of today's video is to bring in some hope to those who might be really struggling, specifically if that experience that you're having is causing you to feel like there's something really wrong with you, or that you're broken or damaged in some way, in a way that maybe is not even repairable. And this message of hope doesn't just come from some cognitive understanding that I've gained, or just to make you feel better, even though I hope it will. The message comes from a place of deep personal experience and a shift that I have gone through recently. And this story is what I want to share, because I think a lot of people, when they go through some transformation, they have this thing when they feel like, if I've gone through this and I managed, anyone can do it. And this is exactly how I feel about this topic of feeling like you're broken. When I was 11, or about so, maybe 13, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease after years of suffering from belly pain. The medical premise around autoimmune conditions in itself is that the body is somehow malfunctioning because it's attacking itself. Of course, it goes much deeper than that. It's to do with like how the blood reacts to proteins, etc. But the idea is, with autoimmune disorder, is that the body doesn't recognize what's a threat and what's itself, and it starts attacking itself. And so the whole premise of this condition holds in itself a belief that my body is malfunctioning and it's broken. The belief in itself has come to me before that in my life. If you want a full backstory, I can give that in another video, but to keep it brief, that this is really the diagnosis that I got has really anchored this belief in me that there's something wrong with me. As well as this physical condition, which doesn't just affect your digestive system, it affects your whole body. I have also been diagnosed later in my life with depression and anxiety, which, to be honest, in terms of diagnosis, I think these two just scratch the surface of what's actually happening with me. I have a plethora of different mental health symptoms that point to having medical conditions. I do this all the time because now that I understand how nervous system works, I also understand that all these different mental health conditions, the diagnosis that we get are simply tags for a bunch of symptoms that our nervous system and our body and our mind experience. So what I mean by that is, like, with mental health, it is akin to going to a physical doctor with a broken leg and the doctor saying, oh, well, you have a broken leg syndrome. It's like, I know that's what I am experiencing. I have a broken leg. That's not the cause. This is exactly how it kind of works within mental health space. The only tool that psychiatrists use is assessing you based on your answers to their questions, unless you actually undergo a brain scan. And as I said, now that I understand how nervous system works, I understand that the diagnoses that we get, whether they're for, in my opinion, also physical conditions, but especially mental health conditions, they are, the vast majority of the time, simply adaptations of a nervous system to certain environmental threats that we have experienced or are experiencing in our life, rather than there is a malfunction in the system. Because of my belief system anyway, I don't subscribe to the idea at all that the body can malfunction. So in my opinion, in my belief, the body always does the best. And so coming back to me getting the diagnosis of depression, anxiety, I then went on the usual route of getting mental health help through CBT and later some counseling as well, online therapy. My experience with psychotherapy, standard psychotherapy and counseling has not been good. That again reinforced that belief, after seeing therapists and getting this diagnosis and believing also that I have other diagnoses based on my symptoms, it has all been reinforcing this belief in me that there's something deeply wrong with me and the way my brain works and the way my body works. Until I started on the journey of somatic therapy, somatic work, working directly on my nervous system and with my direct experience, rather than trying to figure out how to reframe and manage everything that is happening within my experience. That's a very big distinction. If you're wondering the difference between on standard talk therapy and somatic work, we're working directly with what is happening to me and what has happened to me to create these symptoms, rather than these are your symptoms, let's try and talk about them. And the really big shift that has happened recently that I wanted to bring forward as an example and as a little light of hope for anyone who might be experiencing the same is my story with self-harm. I do want to put that trigger warning there now, that I will be talking a little bit about it, but at the same time, this is a video also for someone who has experienced it or is experiencing it, or has relatives or people they know who are experiencing it, because this is the whole point of this video. I want to give you some hope and understanding of why that might be happening. And if you're doing the right things, or you continue to look for the things that will work for you, you will get better. As I said before, I have been diagnosed with depression and anxiety back when I was 19, and I'm 27 now. At the time of getting diagnosed, I was self-harming. And then there was a period when I didn't do it at all. And I remember the last time I did it was in my last year of university, so that would have been now about 5 or 6 years ago. I actually self-harmed last time. And the reason why it was my last time is because I was so upset that I keep doing it to myself, that I keep hurting myself, that I just told myself, I will never do it again. And I'm happy to say that I haven't done it again. And this is not, by the way, the transformation I want to talk about. Of course, this is the important part of it. But it gets better, I promise. So the thing that helped me was just becoming aware that I was punishing myself. I was hurting my body when I was the only one who could take care of this vessel. I was hurting it, and I felt really upset by that. And I thought, because in my case, the triggers were other people. And relationships with other people were the thing that were triggering me into doing that. And so I thought, I can't let other people have so much power over me that I injure my own body. And that somehow worked for me. As I said, I've never harmed myself again. I did some binging, like binge eating. So, in some forms there has been a little bit of self-harm still present, but it has never been this severe again. And I was really happy about that. But the problem was that the thought and the desire to do it has stayed. And since that last time I actually did it physically, I have embarked on my very deep spiritual journey, the journey of inner healing and understanding, what was actually happening to me. Why is life so fucking shit? Why is nothing ever working? All of that. I was just so fed up with the way I lived. That's how my spiritual journey began. And as I said, it's been 5 years since I'd last done it, so it's been a long time, and I've still had these thoughts, not regular, of course, but they have come up. And so I started to understand, I started to really ask myself, when do I have that desire to do it? And this might be different for you if you do decide to ask yourself that and explore this a little bit for yourself. So it might be different for you, but for me, it was anger. It was anger that I have internalized and directed at myself. Anger is an emotion that has a function to protect our boundaries, okay, in its, if you like, healthy state. But when we are, as children, unable to use our anger to protect ourselves, and that happens to pretty much every single child on the planet at some point, at least. Our parents either shut us down, don't be angry, or go stand in the corner for being so angry, or humiliating us for our anger, etc. Or maybe, it was actually physically dangerous to express anger. Whatever it might be, at some point there's an experience where we shut our anger down. And it might not cause severe long-term problems if it happens just once or twice. But when we live in families where our anger is repressed time after time after time, it still wants to come out, because it is our natural nervous system response to threat, to our boundaries being broken. And so what happens when we're trying to, that anger is trying to come out, and it can't, because there's a wall here that is constantly being put, at first by others and later on by our own psyche, like, it's dangerous, don't do this, it's going to be shut down again, we're going to be humiliated again. What happens is that anger hits the wall and makes a U-turn and goes back on ourselves. This is not a conscious process that we're doing to ourselves. We don't consciously choose to turn that anger on ourselves. This happens in its own process inside of ourselves. This is what the ego does. The anger will come out whether we like it or not, because it is our survival response. The survival response is the strongest thing on this planet. It's much stronger than your willpower or any sort of manifestation practices you might be doing in your life. Your survival response is the thing that keeps you alive. So good luck trying to mend that. And I'm happy for that it's not going away, because it's the thing that keeps you safe. But of course, what's not keeping us healthy is that anger hitting that wall and turning back and going on ourselves. So in my experience, how it manifested later down in my life, well, firstly, it manifested in my Crohn's disease. That's the topic for another video. I'm not saying that everyone's Crohn's disease comes from that, by the way. Please don't take it as that. But I have done the work to understand that that's where it comes from. But more importantly, related to this video, my anger manifested in self-harm. The anger that I felt towards people, but I couldn't even cognize it at the time. I couldn't even think that I'm angry at them, because I got so used to doing this, deflect, that it was like a process, like lightning. I couldn't even understand that that's what was happening. I felt like my boundaries were being impeded on, and this process of anger wanting to come out and it getting deflected, and I'm feeling angry at myself, it was so quick that, as I said, I couldn't understand it and cognize it and distance myself from it so that I could observe this whole process happening. I couldn't even do it anymore. And so that stress that I was experiencing from all of this process happening inside of me was so much for my nervous system that the only way I knew to relieve it was to harm myself. Because for me personally, when I cut myself, I felt a huge hormonal release in the body, right? I don't know what it was. Perhaps, when you hurt yourself, the body releases a lot of, I don't know what it is, dopamine, serotonin, to make you calm. Kind of like, when you're having a hysterical crying session and then all of a sudden you feel really, really calm afterwards. It's like that. It's like a release, like orgasm. It's like that. It's a release. Or when you're taking a drug. All the body's trying to do is manage that stress, that build-up of stress, and we each do it differently. One person might be taking a drug to release that top build-up energy and stress. Another person might self-harm. Another person might have a sex addiction or porn addiction. Another person might just go and on a shopping spree and spend all their money, or binge eat. It literally doesn't matter what your symptom is, because the cause of that symptom is too much dysregulation in your body. And it's not because you're broken. It's because something has happened in your life that made you unable to complete your natural cycles of emotion and hormones in your body. If there is a threat, we need to respond to that threat. And you don't need to do it consciously, your body does it by itself. The thing that happens though is we consciously put blocks, or subconsciously, but if that anger wants to come out and we're preventing it from coming out in any healthy way, or even unhealthy way, it's just going to make a U-turn, and then it's going to have so much pathology. It's going to have so much pathology in your life in the form of health problems, mental health problems, behavioral patterns that are unhealthy relationships. It comes from your nervous system having incomplete loops of emotional response that was meant to happen and it never happened. And so going back to my transformation story, I went through a lifetime of trauma, developmental trauma, that just kept getting reinforced and reinforced, and eventually getting a diagnosis of depression and anxiety. I went through a period of self-harm because part of everything I was going through was built up unprocessed rage that was meant to be expressed but was repressed. And eventually I said, I won't be doing that anymore. I will not be hurting myself. And that was great, but as I said before, the desire stayed. And at one point, about a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, that rage that has been stored in me started to come out in what we call in our society anger issues, okay? So I was able to kind of witness my reactions, but it's like I wasn't able to control my reactions, and my reactions were like that. So I went from a lifetime of not expressing or not showing any anger to anyone, only dealing with it internally, to even the slightest thing just triggering the heck out of me, and I would just scream or throw things. I broke my phone, I ripped a notepad, I threw things across the room. Never harmed anyone, so I was aware enough that it wasn't spilling out in that way, but it was so strong and it started to cost me money. And I was like, this is not normal. Like, part of me was so happy because I was like, oh my god, finally I'm able to feel this anger and it's not just directed at me. But another part of me was like, well, it just feels like I'm broken in another way now because I'm not able to control this at all. And at the time, I had this therapist who was not trauma informed, and I was telling this therapist that I had at the time, you know, about my anger issues, and I was saying, I don't know what to do about them. Where does this all come from? Like, what do I do? And he started to tell me how to manage it. You know, he was like, oh, when you feel anger, when you're starting to feel this anger, you should just like go and like draw it on paper. And I'm like, I mean, that's great advice, I guess, but it made me so fucking angry that he gave me that advice. Like, and it's ironic, you know, I'm asking for advice to deal with anger, and it made me angry. I want to understand what's causing me this anger that is like fucking rage coming out of my womb, man. Like, and you're telling me to go and draw? Are you serious? and that's kind of what, when I thought, and I was happy about that, because part of me was obviously angry and frustrated as hell, but another part was like, it knew that there is another way. Like, I knew that I'm not supposed to manage my life. I'm supposed to live it, and I'm supposed to experience it, and I just want to understand how to work with it rather than manage it and repress it again. Like, I've done it all my life. What are you saying? And so I had this like epiphany moment of still being confused and not knowing what I'm supposed to do, but at the same time being so aware that I'm so sick of people trying to put me in a box and trying to tell me that there's something wrong with me and I need to manage my wrongness. And I think so many, especially women, will understand this topic on anger because we're supposed to be the good girls, right? I understood that deeply within a big part of it was that anger directed at myself that was being expressed through this self-harm. My body was trying to deal with the stored stress from that built-up anger by releasing it through harming myself. And again, you can apply that to addiction or any kind of unhealthy behavior that gives you release in the moment but is unhelpful in the long term. And then, as I said earlier in the video, a year ago I found EP, which stands for embodied processing, and it's a form of somatic therapy. And I've started to really work with my experience and sit with those emotions and really understand the roots of them and start to learn to contain them. And oh my God, that was like, and that is something I'm still doing, and it's a never-ending process. But the transformation I had from that is not even anywhere near comparable to the years of trying to find answers through normal therapy and reading books on self-management and improving myself and spirituality. My nervous system, and everyone's nervous system, is the foundation of your life, because your life happens here. Not in me, but in you. Your life, your experience of life is here. Not here and not out here. The experience of life is in your body. Your nervous system is the foundation of you feeling safe in your body. And one of the first practitioners I worked with in the somatic world, I told her at the time that, you know, my experience and my symptoms kind of point to the fact that I probably have borderline personality disorder. And this is important, why I want to share this. It turned out that she was actually diagnosed with borderline, this practitioner that I shared this with. And, you know, and she was telling me about her experiences, and I was like seeing myself in everything she was describing. And she said, but you know what, I don't have it anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? You know, it was such a weird thing, because I at the time I thought that, you know, it's a condition, it's a disorder, and like with every other disorder, you just have to manage it for the rest of your life. And she was like, I don't have it anymore. And I want you to know that you don't have to have it forever. You can work your way through it. And I, of course, didn't know how at the time, but her just sharing that with me, I was like, oh my God, I don't have to deal with this for the rest of my life, with all of these symptoms. And I don't have to feel broken all my life. And why I said this is important is because this is kind of what I want to do with this video today. Coming back to the topic of anger and self-harm, I've had a few instances recently where that same level of anger that used to cause me to self-harm and later used to create thoughts of wanting to self-harm continuously, I felt it recently again, that same level of anger, that same level of inner turmoil. And I didn't self-harm, and I didn't have any more thoughts of self-harming. What happened is I learned to, I'm still learning, I'm still in the process of learning to fully contain it and fully integrating it. And I'm getting closer, because what happened in the last few instances of it appearing is I was able to release it with full awareness and presence for it. I was beating pillows, so it was still kind of coming out of me, but I was present for it. I was allowing myself to do it. I wasn't just kind of mindless and just, you know, just going at it. I was like, I'm feeling this energy, and I'm not able yet to contain it fully. I'm not just able to sit with it or draw with it, but I am able to witness it. And I'm going to allow it to express itself through me beating this shit out of these pillows. Recognizing the fact that this same level of intensity that I feel now is what I've always felt before. It used to make me self-harm or want to self-harm, and now I didn't even have the thought of it. I just was able to witness it as energy in my body that wanted to come out and wanted to express itself. It wanted to complete its cycles, this hormonal cycle of cortisol and adrenaline, and I allowed it to do it with an awareness. And I was like, oh my God, this is what it means when you can say, I don't have that mental health condition anymore. It's not because you don't feel emotions anymore. You absolutely fucking do. It's normal. You want to feel emotions. And this is especially difficult for HSPs, which I am, a highly sensitive person, because you will always feel emotions. But they don't have to be a burden, and they don't have to control you. They don't have to overwhelm you. They don't have to hold you a prisoner and make you do things that are unhealthy. You can learn to communicate with them and be with them, be present and aware for them, and allow them to express themselves. Allow yourself to express you. And it's a journey. You can't go from wanting to self-harm or actually doing it to just being, I'm witnessing it. It might happen, but it's more healthy to kind of hold the awareness that it might take some time. But the same way that the practitioner that I had sessions with earlier last year gave me that hope when she said, I don't have borderline anymore. I was like, how is that even possible? But and the fact that I didn't know that didn't matter to me. All I knew was that it was possible. Knowing that was all I needed. And now, a year later, almost a full year later, I'm here to tell you that your emotions don't have to overwhelm you to the point of unhealthy behaviors. However bad your symptoms are, you're not broken. Even if people around you are saying that you are, they probably, most likely, are not aware of how nervous system works, and they're not trauma informed, and that's not their fault. Most people in the world are still not trauma informed, but that's the whole point of me getting trauma informed and then informing you, and you getting your own maybe learning as well outside of here, because then we start becoming trauma informed and we can pass on this information and we can heal together, not shame ourselves into change, but give ourselves safe space and connection with others who are trauma informed for that healing to occur on its own accord. Of course, this is a very vulnerable topic, and I think there is a kind of like I don't know what to call it, a stigma or a belief around, how a therapist should be, or if someone, it's like, if you are like a relationship coach, then you should have like the perfect relationship, and perfect obviously means different things to everyone, but you like need to be flawless. And if you're a therapist, you need to be fully healed. All we have is tools to maintain our health, whether it's physical health, mental health, relational health, financial health. All we have is tools, and the more we practice those tools, the better at those tools we become. And all we can do is share them with others and say, well, this is what helped me. And so that's why I'm kind of wanting to be more vulnerable and show you that I'm going through some shit too. But I'm finding my way out, and it's a practical way out. Out of everything I've learned, it's the only thing that helped me. And I think a big part of that, it isn't just the process itself, it's the fact that it has been like a mindset shift and a lifestyle shift, rather than trying to find like a quick fix solution and just do this one practice once in a blue moon and then I'm healed. When you're dealing with severe trauma, or if you're aware that your symptoms are very severe, even if you're not aware yet that you have trauma, but if you're dealing with something that you feel like you've got no control over, trauma is most likely at the root of it. And when you're dealing with something like that, there is no such thing as a quick fix solution. When the problem is systemic, you need a systemic change, which involves you changing how you live or how you perceive life, how you treat yourself. And that doesn't come from here, it comes from here. But you need someone you need someone to help you be here. And that is what somatic therapy has done for me. That's what all the unbelievable practitioners have done for me. And that is what I do now for other people too. The vibe that I want to really carry out into the world here is, how do I say it? It's like, I guess it's a vibe of no shame for anything that you might carry inside of you. If you have something to share or ask, you can do that here. And if you feel like you want to do this, but of course online is a very vulnerable space, then let me know and I can think of another way to connect and create such a space. But otherwise, I hope this video has given you what I was hoping it will give you, and that is a sense of hope and a sense that you are okay. As much as you might not feel okay, what you're feeling is just waves that will pass. Thank you so much for tuning in. I was hoping to keep it brief. At the moment I think I filmed like 50 minutes worth of video, so it wasn't exactly brief. Let me know if this was helpful. If it wasn't, I won't do it again. And if it was, then I will share more of my personal insights and journey. Because, as I said at the start, it does feel as though if I can go through this sort of transformation, if I am able to have even a slightly different experience to what I've always had, then it really does feel like anyone can. So proceed into the world with the knowledge that things will work out. Things will absolutely work out, and you will find the answers that you're seeking. And I will see you in the next one.